What is going on, everybody? We are back once again with another edition of Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. Believe it or not, it is somehow, some way in the world, it's already August 1st, 2024. I can't believe it. We are right on the heels of SummerSlam. Before we get to SummerSlam this weekend out in Cleveland, we're going to break down last night's Dynamite because it was a significant one. A lot of big announcements, a couple big matches. It's also all-in season. August is a fun month for pro wrestling. One great PLE on the front end and hopefully another great pay-per-view on the back end of it. Here to break down last night's Dynamite with me, though, the very man who reviewed it, David Sheldon. How are you on this fine Thursday evening for you out in the UK, my friend?
Hello, everybody. Very excited to be here talking AEW Dynamite, the show that I did review today. I think a solid episode of television with some very interesting points that we will get into. And yeah, I mean, always a fun day to talk wrestling. So let's get straight to it.
I cannot wait to get into it myself. But first, we've also got to introduce the only man who can break the new 3-person daily rule, Carter Crisp, because we may get a run-in from his cousin, Cardi Cornette, today. We may not. You never know.
Is he around? Is Cardi Cornette? If he is around, regardless, I'm excited to review Dynamite. I thought the episode was really good. I really liked the wrestling. I thought the Willow Statlander match was fantastic. I mean, we got picks here, but like even outside of these topics, I really liked Dynamite last night. I thought the wrestling was awesome. And anytime Ishii's on TV, I can't complain. I mean, those slaps and then he has the same. I believe me and him have the same spirit inside of us.
We are on a show here today that I can 100% confirm. You are talking to 3 Stone Pitbull fans. I know that. I know David's a big Ishii fan himself. You are listening to 3.
I got to watch. I just say I mean, because it's not on our list to talk about today, but I got to see Tomohiro Ishii wrestle the Black Taurus, or the Beast Mortos, as he's now known. I can die a happy man. That was great, and great to see Beast Mortos get a win. They gave him a win on telly. A real life win on telly.
By the way, David, what a reference, because little known fact about our good friend Carter. Do you not own a Black Taurus mask?
So I'm going to publicly throw Lance and his dog under the bus. I own a signed Taurus mask I gave to my girlfriend because Lance's dog hated the mask so much he ripped all the hair off it.
Oh.
I spent $150 on a Taurus mask, got it signed by him, took a picture with him, and Lance's dog proceeded.
Friend of the show, Lance Mackey's canine gets
assaulted.
Involved.
Yeah, my wrestling memorabilia. So right now, my girl Jordan has it. It's in a drawer somewhere in the valley, just tucked away.
Did the dog destroy the signature? That's heartbreaking. I didn't know that.
No, but the hair was a big part of the mask, and to have him like a balding more.
It's just not the same.
It's not a good look. Yeah, so I just gave it up.
It's not the same. Okay,
no, but he was very nice. Spoke very little English, but one of the nicest guys I've ever met.
I love that. Okay, also we got over in the comments on Instagram, one from the fake Slim Shady, so not exactly Eminem, but hello, what's going on? Good to have you as well. World Wrestling Apparel was laughing at that story there, Cardi. Let's get into our first segment of the afternoon here, though. The evening depends on where you are. Bryan Danielson, career on the line. All in against Swerve Strickland, the AEW current world champion. David, we had dueling yes chants and whose house chants. This to me was one of the best segments of the night. Break the whole thing down for me, my friend.
Well, I think this was the best segment of the night. I don't think, if I'm honest, that there's any segment on this show that was you have to see this television. There was some very good stuff on this show. There was some stuff that was less good. I think this was the best of the bunch, though. So I thought Danielson was great. Came out and talked about promises, and the promises that he's made and all those things. And I think that's excellent. I think that was very well done. Swerve was also great, coming out and being very respectful to Danielson, but then tearing into him. The thing is, and I'll get on to the actual decision overall, just as a segment, I did want more from Danielson in terms of feeling like there was something inside him that made him put his career on the line. I never really felt that here. It was there, and if you go back through the segments with Jarrett over previous weeks and this week, you can see the progression. But I just wanted a little bit more. I fully understand why Shawn Michaels wants to put his career on the line against The Undertaker for one last chance at the streak. I get that. I get why Ric Flair is forced into a match with HBK. The question I have is, Danielson's got his match. So what you need to then see is that thing that forces him. He has to put his career on the line. This thing about passion, about drive. He could have done that in this segment, and he didn't. Not to say the segment was diminished, because Danielson is an incredible talker and had some great lines, as is Swerve.
Right.
I also think the decision is perfect. I think it takes a match that I was excited for and amps up the drama significantly. I think it's I was seeing a lot of people saying that Mariah and Tony should main event All In over Swerve Danielson. I don't think anyone will be saying that now after this, because I understandably Mariah and Tony has the better story than Swerve Danielson. But this week, and I'll get on to Mariah and Tony later, I thought the men's world title massively overshadowed it. And I think that you absolutely have a certified Wembley main event in Swerve and Danielson. And I think that the match will be phenomenal, and the emotional stakes will raise it above their Continental Classic match they had last year, which was, I believe, the first time they'd ever wrestled. This will push it even higher up the totem. Whether it was Continental Classic or just afterwards, I can't exactly remember, but it was around that time.
Around that time frame.
Yeah.
I love the point you brought up there, though, really quickly, David, where you said you would have rather seen it where he's forced against the wall to put his career on the line. And me too. I love the connection as both from the Northwest, both Washington, all of that. Swerve and Danielson have that very much in common. I would have liked to have maybe seen Swerve get really aggressive and force Danielson to go, I'll just put my career on the line if that's what it takes.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that you could have done with, him believing he can win, but wanting that extra passion, wanting that, I need the old Bryan Danielson back. And if it's got to take me to put my own career on the line to force me to get to my best, then that's what you can imply that. People have implied that from this segment. It's not that it's missing completely. I just wanted it. And I'm going to, sometimes I'm a hypocrite because sometimes I want things more subtle. I could have done with it a little bit more driven in here just to really set up that it makes total sense why he's doing this. Because the decision is perfect.
Would have been the cherry on top of the sundae, to your point.
Exactly.
Right? It would have just been one thing extra there. And I am in complete agreement. Shad's in the comments cracking me up. He said, Danielson's last match, Soul, he is losing. Soul said, if I get to see Sting's last match and Bryan's last world championship win, I've seen major wrestling history. Absolutely. That's a fact. I think anytime we watch a show of that size, it's major wrestling history, though. I will say Danielson's last match, Soul, he's losing, Shad said, and then he added, the unimportant Washington, DC is the important Washington. That cracked me up.
I'll say this, I'm going to All In. I've officially booked my tickets. I will be there end of next month. I either get to see Bryan Danielson's last world title win or Bryan Danielson's last match. If I'm a wrestling fan, if I hadn't have bought my tickets before this, you bet I'm buying my tickets now. Because they are now selling it on this might be the last chance you'll ever see Bryan Danielson wrestle. And the thing is, regardless of whether Danielson wins, for a UK crowd, this might be the last chance we get to see Danielson wrestle anyway.
Right.
Because the thing with Danielson is
That's a great point.
No, he could be gone in 6 months. He could be gone in 4. He could get injured again and miss next year's All In. I gather they're going to make this a yearly thing as long as they can keep the ticket sales up. So, it's the case of my mate who I'm going to see the show with, shout out to AJ, specifically said, I want to go and see the show because of Danielson and Danielson Swerve. So, so it's a case of, this will sell tickets, and this decision especially so.
I mean, I think another factor also, just before I toss it to you, Cardi, that like I really like about this is, so say Danielson does win at Wembley, right? Say, let's just hypothetically, let's jump to that stage. Now, if he starts putting his career and the belt on the line in every title match, the heels chasing them, the motivation on being the one that can convince us, oh no, it's finally over, is brilliant storytelling. And it's stuff like that Bryan thinks of that other wrestlers just do not.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm always blown away by. Yeah. He's one chess move ahead of so many people at that game.
If you go back to 2000 and late 2007 to early 2008, obviously I was not watching the product live. I was 3 years old, but going back to it now, it made Ric Flair's matches more interesting when suddenly it was any match and look, everybody, even going back, if you look at the trajectory, nobody thought that MVP was going to be the one to retire Ric Flair. Everyone knew that you were going to get to Mania. But even so, it gave that little bit of extra hype to every match that he had.
I've always thought of this too, by the way. You brought up a great point there. Because if somebody has to throw up the X, or there's an injury, or something goes wrong, or there's a fast count on accident, there's a mistake, you're in a tough position there with the career on the line, back against the wall. So it just provides an extra adrenaline rush, especially late in your career, the stage that Danielson's at. It's a little bit of internal motivation in a brilliant way.
Yeah, especially with Danielson's habit of the type of selling that he likes to do, where he tries to convince you he's done his neck in every match he ever does. We're in for a few scary ones, I think. If this is not his last, we may not even get to that point. And I think there's a strong possibility we will.
Okay, that's a great point too. And I gotta give Carter his chance on this one as well. But Carter, I'm gonna ask you, we broke that down a ton there. Who do you see as Danielson's final opponent if you had to pick one? That would be a better question, because we really broke down kind of the picture as far as headed to All In and what happened last night.
I mean, if Danielson wins this one, because it makes the outcome fascinating. The fact that if Danielson loses, he retires. But if he wins, the story you just set up, Clark, you said heel. My first thought was MJF. I'm like, Danielson will go on a run. He'll have some fantastic 5, 6, 17 matches. And I see, I mean, it does set up the ultimate heel turn. I don't know if is Swerve evil enough to retire Danielson? He might be. We'll find out next month. That's the question. But it's funny. So David mentioned Ric Flair. We met Mortos at Flair's last match, and I don't know if the fact checkers can get me on this, but wasn't he in Puerto Rico the week after wrestling? Like, it was Ric Flair's last match, and then he's wrestling the next week in like some outlaw.
He took a bump in Puerto Rico 1 week later.
So I hope And I have a feeling that Danielson has a little bit more honor than that, and he'll honor this one. But I mean, it's just been this run he's been on has been incredible. I thought the Wrestle Dream Zack Sabre Jr. match was freaking awesome. That was one of my favorite in-person matches I saw. So I mean, it's going to be great. It's the perfect build-up, and like David said, you cannot question this as a headliner now. This puts the perfect amount of chocolate sauce on the sundae. You need to pull your spoon out and take a bite of this thing.
100%. We've also got Shot in the comments here with agreeing with you, basically with, I'll say, I wish the stipulation was against a more sinister bad guy that makes you want to really root for Danielson more, like in MJF or the EVPs. To your point, though, I will say, if the stipulation carries through to every defense after one win, Swerve's the first mountain, and the mountains start getting nastier, it just builds the heels in a more positive way.
The fact is, I think Swerve is more interesting. I think because putting him against Matt and Nick Jackson or Okada, as fun as those are, it's very obvious you are against the obvious heel, against the obvious. Swerve is a character with a lot of shades of gray. Does he still have the killer instinct he had to hang Hangman Page from a ring? Does he still have, when the time comes, he's shown he'll execute Will Ospreay. Well, he is not afraid to do it, but will he be able to retire somebody that he cares so much for? I think there's a lot to this story that they can really play with if they play their cards right.
I could not agree more with you on that one. And as much as I love the idea of Max and Danielson, we have seen it played out quite a bit. It doesn't necessarily feel like it has the steam now. I just think that's one that
it was
in the future.
Yeah, I thought it was the best match of last year, the Iron Man match.
I would agree with that.
2023. So I'd be down to see it again, but I honestly think he could retire at Wembley. I do think that we're talking about past Wembley. I think Wembley's it. And if it's not, great. And if it is, there's no better way to go out.
What a beautiful place to do it. And knowing his history with the IC title. I mean, if you think about like some of like even the Miz promo involving the Intercontinental title, the fact that the IC title main evented Wembley the last time the WWE was there with Bret Hart and Bulldog is so, like, for a wrestling history guy like Danielson, it's so fitting. It's such a venue that makes sense because that one's in his heart. That's a match he's watched over and over again. And it's a cool thing to think about. Speaking of cool things to think about, so this is the once a year where we give Lance Archer a real shot and we put him in a really good match. And I love it every time they do it. I'm a huge Murder Rock Monster fan, and we get it once a year. We give him a big sweet match once a year in AEW. I've learned that it's pretty cyclical, usually in the summer. Sometimes it's Hangman Page. Usually it's around a big main event type star. You never know. Last night's match I thought was solid, but I really did think, or at least I hoped that it gave more for Lance Archer than it ended up giving. It didn't, because it was completely overshadowed by the MJF and Will Ospreay interaction in my eyes, which I have no issue with. MJF and Will Ospreay are arguably the two most entertaining guys in a rivalry on the men's side across the board. Right this second, they're the most tantalizing. I mean, they went buzzer beater just under Broadway, right? The oxygen mask, all of it has been well built. It's been fun. Even the corniness of the title thing, I loved. I dig it. Take the Stars and Stripes title in there, like dress up like your Apollo Creed, basically, for your Wembley entrance. And I'm all over that with MJF. I wish more for Archer, but I want to ask you at least, do you think Will Ospreay is thus far, David, the best challenger on the microphone to Maxwell Jacob Friedman? Because week in and week out, he's starting to convince me of such, which is scary to me. And it's not necessarily about promo delivery. It's how serious he is. He's the exact opposite of being sarcastic. Like Max. he's making jokes, but he's dead serious in a different way than MJF is. And so I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good, absolutely. Sorry, let me just regather my thoughts a second. Okay, Will Ospreay is absolutely up there with MJF. I think at the moment, they're very different talkers. They're very different cadences, very different methods in which they execute their delivery. But I do think that Ospreay does certainly have that sort of fire that MJF sort of brings back, because MJF is a lot quieter. Just to talk on this segment more generally and quickly. I like the match. I will always love watching Will Ospreay fight Lance Archer. If I'm being frankly honest, the Japan matches have been better than this. I think if you want to see some really good Will Ospreay and Lance Archer matches, there are some great ones in Japan. I think they said this is the 4th one that they've done. I would recall you to, I believe it was 2022, and it was 2023 with Omega versus Ospreay. The qualifying match for Ospreay to get to Omega was to fight Lance Archer at, I believe, Dominion last year. And they went about 15 minutes, and it was brutal and brilliant. So if you want to watch Archer and Ospreay, go there.
100%. I love that take. And Cardi, I got to get your thoughts too on the Archer Ospreay match last night. And then also, I mean, MJF and his promo and everything, to me, that isn't, there's an argument. We talked about argument between Tony and Mariah main eventing. We talked about the argument Danielson and Swerve. There is an argument here with Max and Will. There definitely is for main event. And what are your thoughts on that, Cardi?
These are it was so silly just seeing them talk. I mean, I know Will was like serious and stuff, but like, I'm so, as an American, just Will is just so British. He's like, bruv, my grandma, you mentioned my grandma, bruv. And then Max is wearing a suit, and then the whole the England in America, like you shouldn't like this guy as an American, and then the American crowds are it's just hilarious. I did not know though that they had a much better match in New Japan. I could totally see that. I did think though, for television, this was a really solid match. I thought, if you don't know Lance Archer, this was a great way to build him up. My take on Ospreay is I'm in line with Mr. Good old Uncle Dave. I'm like, he just puts out 6-star matches whenever he wants, basically. So even this wasn't even his best match with that guy.
You mean Uncle Dave Sheldon?
Uncle Dave Sheldon, of course. Ospreay is a 6-star match producer. Just like, I mean, he just, anytime you put him with somebody, you're gonna get the best out of that other person. And I think you could argue, Clark, that these are the two best workers in very different styles. You know, Ospreay's more of the New Japan, style of, as Carnett might say.
It is, to your point, styles make fights. We always talk about that, like in MMA, like, which is up both of our alleys. This is a stylistic absolute dream, because Archer can work at a pace that most big guys can't, but he is still a brute, right? It's power versus speed. It's classic immovable object versus unstoppable force. Sorry, I almost messed up the saying. It's hard to mess up cliches, but like, I almost just did there, but I got that one. It is. Styles make fights, 100%. I'm with you on that, Cardi. Let's talk about styles, though. I don't know what style you are currently viewing your content when it comes to professional wrestling, but if you're not doing it over on Next Level and you haven't been there yet, you really need to check it out. It's totally free to sign up. It's no gimmicks, giveaways, all kinds of good stuff, and a wrestling community that's absolutely thriving inside of the app. It's 2 clicks away, super user-friendly, and the best part, absolutely free. Not only that, if you go to nxconnect.me/Wrestling Republic, all of our content across every platform is linked all in the same place. Super convenient. Who doesn't like convenient? Faster, easier, better. But let's keep it rolling. Let's talk about our next topic of the evening, the women's title picture. This is one I've been excited to get into. We've got Mariah May. We've got Toni Storm. We've got Mariah May as Toni Storm at times during this rivalry. We brought up this subject earlier, and I want to vet it in general, David. Is there a shot that this truly does main event at Wembley Stadium? It's been given the most time, and I do not mean that negatively. It's been given the most time to work itself out to become an important rivalry, and it's done its job for both performers. I wouldn't be upset by it. It's not my prediction, but it's possible. Do you think it is?
No. Sorry, there we are. I don't think it's possible, unfortunately, because you're not going to beat the possibility of Danielson retiring for the world title. That's not. Before, I think there was a chance. Now there's none. Nothing else is main event in that show but Swerve versus Danielson. And in fairness, with those stakes, what you don't want to do with that type of match of that level of stakes is you don't want to put that on 2 matches from the end and then the other things on the card not live up to that level of hype or stakes. Not to say that Mariah and Toni can't have a fabulous match in the ring. They could main event this show. I don't think they're going to. I am starting to get a bit worried with this story because I think since the unbelievably brilliant turn, we've not done much with it. You had Mariah last week who came out and said broadly nothing. Then, or was that the week before? No, it was the week before. She said broadly nothing. Last week, she squashed somebody, and then Mariah came out. That was fun, the Toni and Mariah face-to-face. That was pretty good. Then on Battle for the Belts, Toni had a response, beat Taya Valkyrie, and did a, I'm going to beat you up and kill you and all these things. And then this week, we had essentially the same thing again, through a very well-delivered backstage bit with Renee, with Mariah, and then Toni coming out on the stage to sort of flail her arms around and say some lines. They're both delivering it very well. I love both these characters. They are doing nothing wrong on their end, which I actually think we're not going to talk about it, but Mercedes right now I think she's coming across like AI. I think I thought her segment was very poor, and I thought Camille's squash was very poor as well, actually. Unfortunately, because I like Camille.
To your point, Mercedes just felt really forced. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but just it was in agreement, and that's the first time I've really fully felt that. I have since she's been on AEW.
I felt it more through the babyface stuff. I think she's been so much better since turning heel, but for me, it didn't work at all, and I don't think it helped that Camille, through no real fault of her own, I don't think. Camille is great, but her squash was a few punches, a sort of choke slam thing off the top rope that she gave up on and ended up just sort of lowering them down, a kick that looked all right, and then a choke slam. That's not when I think of squash matches, I think of things that really put people over. I think of my version of my favorite squash matches I used to watch, and was the Ryback squashes they used to do. That was when I first started watching wrestling and watching Ryback launch people around like ragdolls. They did it with Braun Strowman as well. You can do a great squash to get somebody over. This to me wasn't. I thought Camille was unfortunately very dull. And I think she's a lot better than that. So I'm hoping that she can give more than that. But just to finish off my point on Toni and Mariah.
Go right ahead. I apologize.
Though Mariah and Toni are doing nothing wrong. They are both acting it brilliantly. They bring in the fire. They bring in the hype to it. The problem we have right now is they're not giving. They are very clearly trying to stretch it as much as they can to get it to all in, because they've kind of told their story. They don't need any more now. They've got this blood feud. So now it's just a case of they've got 3 weeks, I think, 3 or 4 weeks now, 4, to get this. I'm really worried it's going to lose steam. So I'm hoping that they do have some killer angles, because these women are brilliant, and this story has been brilliant. I don't want to see it cool off right at the end, because they've still got steam. They just need to push it now.
I love that. Like one more, it's almost like this old sword in the stone. One more pull, just like then it's really on. I agree.
Yeah.
There needs to be one more caveat, one more. I'm looking for the right word, to be honest, but right, like just one more mountain to climb, for lack of a better way to put it. Till we get there. And I agree, to really hammer home just how important this rivalry is. But let's move on. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry.
No,
I'm so sorry. I just want to
go right ahead. We got time.
I think a part of the reason for that could be with this story. There isn't actually much of a personal element to it on Mariah's end. Mariah's been very clear in her segments. I don't care about Toni Storm. I just played her like a fiddle. I didn't care about her. I didn't care about any of it. So if this story's got to work, that's got to be peeled back, and it's got to be revealed that she does in some way still care. Because if she doesn't, then all of Tony's "I hate you, it's gonna get stale, because you've got 4 weeks left. I think you need that little bit of personal touch in there from Mariah to make the story feel more, rather than just I never cared about you.
That is a great call, David, from a storytelling perspective. If there's a way you can almost have Tony sneak one thing, maybe Tony's in distress and doesn't expect it to land, but it hits home. It can be a one-liner. It can be a simple, slipped in. It doesn't need to be like an entire segment. It doesn't need to be focused on for a long time. But there's one thing, and just a look, just a change of demeanor for a split second. Oh, that would turn the story on its head even more than it already has been. I love that idea. Like, absolutely, I adore that idea, David, in every way, 100%. Let's talk about our main event of the evening, though. I'm calling it upset of the week because I had Hangman Page winning this on my bingo card. I did, and I'm a gambler, admittedly. I love to gamble, but obviously not on pro wrestling, but I do love to gamble. And if I was betting, I would have taken Hangman Page in this one, just simply because of the way he's returned as more vicious. I miss Ghost Town Triumph as much as the next guy. It was one of my favorite entrances in all of wrestling. But I do love the new entrance. I love the new edge to his character. How we got here, I think some of his best work was as Anxious Millennial Cowboy. And we're getting towards, he's using psychological emotions. This is a guy that is really smart and emotionally intelligent to change his character. And there's a subtlety to it because he's always Hangman at heart. But I think he's underappreciated on his character work because he really does study the way he goes about it. And he's a really, really, really brilliant guy. If you listen to him talk, he is bright as could be, and I think he's doing an amazing job with this. Darby, however, is on fire right now, and this was a huge win. Pulls the big upset. Cardi, what did you think about this one? I mean, I thought Hangman Swerve was going to be the direction at some point. That doesn't look like anytime soon.
I mean, I did not read David's review yet, but I do not know this match. I give it 6 stars. It was a perfect match to me. 10 coffin drops with a roll-up finish. I mean, I would book that over. I would book that same match 2 nights in a row if that was the Territories days. I thought perfect use of both characters. You're right, Clark. Darby's on a hell of a run. Freaking Brody King chucked him in a mosh pit like 3 weeks ago at Sound and Fury, which was a fest I was at too. I don't know. It's perfect use to both these guys. You got a powerhouse kind of. I did not think about Hangman's character work like that though, Clark. I because he's kind of quiet, not a lot of words, just like he's brewing. He's brewing, and then Darby's just just the ultimate Nitro Circus stunt. Like, he's a dream come. I really hope he takes good care of his body though, because I want to see. I don't want to say I want to see years of this, but it was just perfect. You saw your outlaw mud show coffin drops. You got your roll up finish. You got some real wrestling. I'd say I don't know how much of the match percentage wise was out of the ring, but it felt like most of it was out of the ring. Which, as an All Japan guy, I absolutely love that. So I give it 6 stars, 7 stars in the dome. I don't know what David did, but maybe 4.5. But I loved it. I loved it.
David does not break the scale normally, Cardi, but I respect you breaking the scale in this situation. That's completely fair. That is completely fair. I mean, I got to say myself, I found it fascinating that you look at the two big matches on this card. Not that there are 3 realistically, but the 2 men on the men's side. You have Ospreay and Lance Archer, and then you've got Hangman and Darby. And there's so much crossover between those 4 over time. And then, as you even mentioned, the Brody King and Darby thing, I forgot you told me about that. It's a great story, actually. It's fascinating. Threw Darby into a mosh pit at a hardcore show. David, he basically took a bump at not a wrestling show. But this match, I thought it stood up almost to Ospreay Archer. I'll give that one the slight nod, just given card timing and whatnot last night. But David, I also have unfortunately not had the time to read your review yet, so I don't even know star ratings wise what it looks like between the two. No spoilers. You need to read the article, but maybe give us a few hints here. What did you think about it?
So I did rate this higher than Ospreay and Archer. I've seen better Ospreay
I
and
had
Archer
a feeling
matches.
I didn't want to spoil that. I'm sorry.
Yes, I did. Go and read the review to reveal exactly what I rated every segment on the show, but I did rate the main event higher. I did think the main event was the best match of the card. I think that both these guys are great. You expect you give Hangman Page and Darby Allin 20 minutes. Yeah, you know, what do you expect? You're going to get great wrestling because these are 2 of the best wrestlers in the company. I love Hangman's character work. I love Darby's selling. I very much enjoyed the overall story of this. It's one we've seen before. It's the same sort of story he pulled out in the Jeff Jarrett match. Only in the Jeff Jarrett match, it briefly cost him, but he still won. You know, because when he did the Jarrett match, he fell for the Jarrett falling over trick or caught in the sharpshooter, but ultimately did get out. But he didn't against Darby. He got caught in a roll up and lost. So, you know, his anger is starting to come back to bite him now, and his knock my laptop over. But yes, his viciousness is starting to come back to bite him now, which I think is a great story. Just very good wrestling. Nothing I think spectacular. I think on a pay-per-view this would have been probably better, but for a TV match, really good stuff. Some very brutal spots, and I think that the roll-up finish, while I get iffy with roll-ups usually, I think it suited the story, and I'm happy for it if it suits the story. And I think we're going to Hangman Okada. That's where I think we'll go, or Darby Okada. I take either of those options. But I could see that happening. Yeah, why not both? I know. But what we've also got to remember, what we've also got to be very careful of, and I said this last year, and they didn't listen to me. They got away with it because the show was great. I keep knocking my laptop over. They've got All Out. They've got All In and All Out in the space of 3 weeks this time, because they put an extra week. September the 2nd, I think. Or whatever it is, it's I think it is the following. I think they moved it back from then to the week after. So they've now got 2 weeks to build that card, which is great because God knows they need it. So we can't spill everything at Wembley because All Out has got to have a great card as well. So I've said I would put Willow and Statlander at All Out, not All In, to give it time to breathe. I would put one of that matches, a Darby Okada, a Hangman Okada in All Out, and you do something else at All In. Maybe you do one at All In, one at All Out, and then a third option at All Shake It All About, which is my a secret show. That,
if we don't do Shake It All About, by the way, next year, Tony Khan, take notes. That has
draft.
to be it.
It'll be what they're going to call their first.
Okay,
the first AEW draft. It's going to be called the All Shake It All About, and I guarantee you,
trademark it now. I gotta say this though, Hangman and Okada, fantasy booking wise for me, it'd be like the only match where you could go super old school and go like first one to connect on the lariat wins. Do Buckshot versus Rainmaker, and just the amount of ducking and the cat and mouse game, and those two wrestling, I think, could handle it in the ring and make it so entertaining and so edge of your seat. We're like, oh, he's gonna. Nope.
Well, here's my fantasy booking following your line. Then is I wouldn't put that as a stip, but I'd have it be whoever hits it first, the match is over. Because it's the Rainmaker versus the Buckshot, and you basically do Mania X7, not to the same level, but where the whole match is building up to the Buckshot. Hangman finally hits the Buckshot, and Okada kicks out, and it breaks Hangman's mind, and it costs him the match. That is if I was booking that match, that's what I do. Not saying that that's exactly where we're going. I don't know where we're going.
Think of it this way.
That's just an idea.
How about he starts with a dead eye really quickly? This is kind of a funny one now that we're spitballing here. He starts with a dead eye and puts him down instead to hit the Buckshot because of the story. Then he kicks out and is pinned by the Rainmaker, and it puts over the dead eye. If he'd hit the dead eye and the Buckshot, we now know it's for sure over. Right? Oh, I mean, there's so many ways you can go with that, but I love the lariat versus lariat stuff. Chris Leclerc in the comments, friend of the show, thank you. Shout out, said All Out September 7th in my hometown of Chicago. Absolutely. I'm fired up about that one too. I was a little bit funky at first with the concept last year of it's really hard to build that pay-per-view card in 2 weeks. I actually kind of dig it now. It feels like, you know how Rumble and then whatever whether it's No Way Out or Elimination Chamber or whatever it is each year, and Mania season feels like it goes by really quick and it's almost like WWE season. The idea of sort of commandeering the end of this as opposed to heading towards, the start of the summer, end of spring season, the way that the WWE does it, AEW seems to be trying to do the same with the end of the summer headed into the fall. And I actually respect that from an outsider perspective when it comes to that. Like, I think it makes a lot of logical sense there. Right.
I think
you miss out on.
Sorry, go ahead. Go on. All I was going to say is that with All Out, what we got last year was some matches that you never would have thought would have got the time on pay-per-view that they did. I mean, it was main evented by Orange Cassidy and Jon Moxley for the international title. Feels like a more mid-card match, and they gave it half an hour. If you remember, that show had two, in my book, 2 5-star matches. We didn't rate it as such, but because that was Omega Takeshita was on that show, as well as Danielson Garcia. So you can really get some incredible matches in there if they book it properly. But I'd like to see them book it better than last year's, because last year's was still shambled. In
the words of one of the best sports commentators that I've always looked up to, the great Chris Berman, I remember, David, because I was there. That does bring us to the end of the show, though. So much fun today. Seriously, love breaking down Dynamite. Check us out every day, same time, same place, noon Pacific, 3 in the East, 8 in the UK. That's, of course, 9 a.m. over in Hawaii. On behalf of me, Carter, David, everybody at Wrestling Republic, thank you so much. Smash that like and subscribe, and have an excellent Thursday afternoon, August 1st. Unbelievable to me. Have a good one.